There are moments in life when a child's words stop time itself, when their voice carries something that shouldn't be there, something ancient, something impossible. In a small town nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, a 4-year-old girl named Emma Hartley began speaking about things no child should know. She spoke of secrets, of warnings, of a message hidden in plain sight. And at the center of it all, she mentioned a name that made her parents' blood run cold: Jesus. But what she said next would challenge everything they believed about reality, time, and the thin veil between worlds. This is Stories in Silence, where hidden tales find their voice. Boone, North Carolina, sits at an elevation of 3,300 feet, where autumn fog rolls through the valleys like something alive. The town is small, intimate, the kind of place where everyone knows your name and your history. White clapboard churches dot the hillsides. Maple trees turn crimson and gold in October. The air smells of wood smoke and mountain laurel. It's beautiful, it's peaceful, but beauty, as the Hartley family would learn, can hide mysteries that defy comprehension. Michael and Sarah Hartley moved to Boone in the spring of 2022, searching for a quieter life away from the chaos of Charlotte. They bought a modest colonial-style home on Laurel Creek Road, surrounded by dense forest and the constant whisper of wind through pine trees. Their daughter Emma was just turning 4. She was bright, curious, with blonde curls and eyes the color of mountain streams. A normal child, a happy child, until October 15th. Sarah remembers the exact date because it was the morning Emma refused to go to her preschool. Not with tantrums or tears, but with a calm, unsettling certainty that made Sarah's skin prickle. "We can't go today, Mama," Emma said, standing in the kitchen doorway, her small hands clasped in front of her. "He told me to stay home." Sarah paused, coffee mug halfway to her lips. "Who told you, sweetheart?" "The man with the kind eyes," Emma replied. "He comes at night. He sits on my bed and tells me things." Every parent knows that chill, that moment when childhood imagination brushes against something darker. Sarah knelt down, forcing a smile. "What kind of things, Emma?" The little girl tilted her head, as if listening to something just beyond hearing. "He says there's a secret, a very important secret, and soon everyone will need to know." How do you respond to that? How do you tell your 4-year-old that imaginary friends are normal while your instincts scream that something is deeply, fundamentally wrong? Sarah let Emma stay home that day. She told herself it was harmless. Children have vivid imaginations. The move had been stressful. Emma was adjusting. All perfectly rational explanations. But that night, Michael heard his daughter's voice drifting down the hallway at 2 in the morning. Not crying, not bustle, calling out, speaking, having a conversation. He crept to her doorway and peered inside. Emma sat upright in her small bed, bathed in moonlight filtering through lace curtains. Her eyes were open, focused on the empty space beside her. And she was speaking with the clarity of someone much, much older. "I understand," she said softly, "but they won't believe me. I'm just a little girl." Silence. Then, "Yes, I'll try. I'll tell them what you showed me." Michael's throat tightened. "Emma? Sweetheart, who are you talking to?" His daughter turned to face him, and in the pale light, her expression was serene. Ancient. "Jesus, Daddy, he's teaching me about the end." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Michael stumbled backward, his rational mind screaming for explanations, even as something primal inside him recognized truth. He flicked on the hallway light, flooding Emma's room with harsh brightness. The spell broke. Emma blinked, rubbed her eyes, and lay back down as if nothing had happened. "Go to sleep, baby," Michael whispered, his voice shaking. But how could he sleep? How could anyone sleep after hearing their child speak with such certainty about impossible things? The next morning, over breakfast, Michael and Sarah tried to approach the subject carefully. Emma ate her cereal, swinging her legs beneath the table, seemingly unbothered. "Emma, honey," Sarah began, "last night, Daddy heard you talking. You said you were speaking with Jesus?" Emma nodded, matter of fact. He comes to teach me. He says I'm supposed to remember." "Remember what?" Michael asked, his journalist instincts kicking in despite his fear. "The secret," Emma said, as if it were obvious. "The one he hid. He says people forgot to look in the right place." Sarah and Michael exchanged glances. This was beyond normal childhood fantasy. This was specific, detailed, unsettling. "What place, sweetheart?" Sarah pressed gently. Emma's blue eyes met her mother's. "In the words everyone reads but nobody sees." What does that mean? How could a 4-year-old construct a riddle like that? Where does a child learn to speak in metaphors about hidden knowledge? Michael, ever the skeptic, decided to test his daughter. That afternoon, while Sarah was at work, he sat Emma down in the living room with her coloring books. "Emma, can you tell me more about what Jesus teaches you?" The little girl didn't look up from her drawing. She was sketching something with intense concentration. A circle divided into sections, numbers scattered throughout, symbols that looked almost like ancient script. "He shows me pictures," Emma said, "pictures of things that already happened and things that haven't happened yet. He says time is like a big circle, Daddy, everything touching everything." Michael's blood ran cold. He had never discussed philosophy or theology with his 4-year-old. They read picture books about talking animals and adventures, not theological, concepts about the nature of time. "What else does he show you?" Michael asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma set down her crayon. "He shows me a door, a silver door in the sky, and he says when it opens, everything changes. People will see what was always there but couldn't see before." "When does the door open, Emma?" "When the secret is told," she replied simply. "That's why he picked me, because I'm small and nobody expects it." If this wasn't real, if this was some elaborate childhood game, why did every word feel like a stone dropping into a bottomless well? That evening, Sarah came home to find Michael pacing the kitchen, his phone in hand. Emma's drawing spread across the table. "Look at this," he said, his hands trembling slightly. "Look at what she drew." Sarah studied the image, the circle, the symbols. Something about it felt familiar, like a memory from a dream. She pulled out her phone and searched. Circle divided time, ancient symbols. The results made her breath catch. Similar images appeared throughout history. In Mayan calendars, Tibetan mandalas, medieval Christian manuscripts depicting the Wheel of Time. Symbols Emma couldn't possibly have encountered. Concepts far beyond her years. "Michael," Sarah whispered, "what's happening to our daughter?" He had no answer, neither of them did. Over the following weeks, Emma's behavior shifted subtly. She became quieter, more introspective. She would stand at her bedroom window for long stretches, staring at the mountains as if reading messages in the ridgelines. She refused to watch her usual cartoons, saying they were too loud. Instead, she asked her parents to play music, specifically hymns and classical compositions she'd never heard before but somehow recognized. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, because here at Stories in Silence, we always bring tales that challenge logic itself. One afternoon, Sarah took Emma to the town library, hoping normalcy might break whatever spell had taken hold. Emma wandered the children's section briefly before stopping at a display of old books near the reference desk. She reached up and pulled down a leather-bound Bible, so large she could barely hold it. "This one, Mama," she said. "Can we look at this one?" The librarian, Mrs. Kessler, an elderly woman who'd worked there for 40 years, smiled warmly. "That's a replica of the King James Bible from 1611, sweetheart. It's a bit heavy for little hands." Emma didn't respond. She was already opening the book, her small fingers tracing the pages with impossible purpose. She stopped at the Book of Revelation, chapter 13. "Here," Emma said softly. "This is where people stop reading carefully. He says they see the words but miss the pattern." Sarah felt dizzy. "Emma, you can't read yet." "I'm not reading, Mama," Emma replied, still focused on the page. "I'm remembering." Mrs. Kessler had gone very pale. "Sarah, how does she know where Revelation is located?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted, her voice cracking. Emma looked up at both women with those impossibly clear eyes. "He says there's a number inside the number, a code people thought was scary, but it's actually a key. When you see it right, it opens understanding." The library felt too quiet, too still, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. That night, Michael couldn't resist. He pulled up Revelation 13 on his laptop, reading the famous passage about the mark of the beast, the number 666. He'd read it before years ago in high school. It had seemed ominous then, symbolic, but now, with Emma's words echoing in his mind, he read differently. He searched for patterns, numerical codes, hidden messages. He cross-referenced translations, studied Greek manuscripts, dove into interpretations from biblical scholars spanning centuries. And then, at 3 a.m, exhausted and frustrated, he noticed something. The verse structure, the rhythm. When you isolated certain words based on their numerical position in the original text, they formed a secondary message, almost like an acrostic poem hidden in plain sight. It spoke of renewal, of transformation, of an end that was also a beginning. Could this be real? Could there actually be a hidden code that scholars had missed for 2,000 years? Or was he losing his mind, seeing patterns where none existed because his daughter had planted the suggestion? He needed to know for certain. The next day, Michael reached out to Dr. Helena Morrison, a professor of religious studies at Appalachian State University, just minutes from their home. He explained the situation carefully, leaving out the parts about Jesus visiting his daughter, focusing instead on the linguistic pattern he'd discovered. Dr. Morrison agreed to meet. They sat in her cluttered office, surrounded by books and ancient scrolls under glass, and Michael showed her his findings. She listened intently, her expression unreadable behind wire-rimmed glasses. "This is extraordinary," she finally said. "I've studied biblical texts for 30 years, and I've never seen this particular pattern isolated quite this way. Where did you learn this technique?" Michael hesitated. "My daughter told me where to look." Dr. Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Your daughter is how old?" "4." The professor set down her pen very slowly. "I see. I know how it sounds," Michael said quickly. "Believe me, I know. But she's been saying things, knowing things that she shouldn't be able to know. And I need to understand if there's something real here, or if my family is experiencing some kind of shared delusion." Dr. Morrison studied him for a long moment. Then she pulled a book from her shelf, an ancient-looking tome with pages like parchment. "There are traditions," she began carefully, "in various mystical branches of Christianity, Judaism, and other faiths that speak of children as vessels, pure enough to receive messages that adults, clouded by skepticism and worldly concerns, cannot perceive." "Do you believe in those traditions?" Michael asked. "I believe," Dr. Morrison said slowly, "that the universe is far stranger than we typically acknowledge. I've seen enough unexplainable phenomena in my research to keep an open mind. If your daughter is truly accessing some form of knowledge, the question becomes, why her and why now? Why indeed? Why would a 4-year-old girl in Boone, North Carolina, be chosen to reveal a secret hidden for millennia? What made Emma Hartley special? What made this moment in time significant?" Michael had no answers, only growing dread. That weekend, Emma asked her parents to take her somewhere specific. "The old church," she said, "the one on the mountain road where the trees lean." Sarah knew exactly which church Emma meant. Grace Chapel, an abandoned Presbyterian church built in 1870, now weathered and forgotten on Old Mountain Road. They'd driven past it once, months ago. Emma had been asleep in the back seat. She couldn't possibly remember it, yet she insisted. Michael and Sarah exchanged worried glances, but decided to honor Emma's request. Perhaps confronting whatever this was directly would provide answers, or at least closure. The drive up Old Mountain Road took 20 minutes, winding through dense forest where autumn leaves created a canopy of fire-colored light. Grace Chapel appeared suddenly, as if materializing from the mist, a small white structure with a crumbling steeple, windows dark and empty, surrounded by a cemetery where headstones tilted at odd angles. Emma climbed out of the car with purpose, walking directly to the church's front door. It was locked, the wood swollen with moisture and age. She placed her small hand on the door and spoke. "Thank you for teaching me," she said to the empty air. "I'll tell them, I promise." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face without understanding why. Michael stood frozen, unable to move, unable to speak. Emma turned to face her parents, and in that moment, in the fading afternoon light, she looked both impossibly young and infinitely old. "He says the secret is simple," Emma began, her voice carrying despite the wind. "People made it complicated because they were afraid. They saw endings and thought it meant destruction. They saw transformation and thought it meant loss. But the secret is about becoming, about seeing with new eyes." "Emma," Sarah whispered, "what are we supposed to do with this?" "Remember," Emma said, "and when the time comes, recognize it. He says the door will open soon. Maybe in our lifetime, maybe in someone else's. But when it does, people who remember the secret won't be afraid." What door? What transformation? What does any of this mean? That evening, back home, Emma returned to being a normal 4-year-old. She played with her dolls. She giggled at silly songs. She asked for extra dessert. It was as if the weight she'd carried had lifted. Michael found her tucking her stuffed rabbit into bed beside her. "Emma, is Jesus still visiting you?" Emma looked up at him with a smile. "Not anymore, Daddy. He said his job is done. I remembered what I was supposed to remember. Now it's up to me to live it." "Do you understand what he taught you?" Michael asked gently. "Not all of it," Emma admitted. "He said I will, though, when I'm older. He said the secret grows with you like a seed." A seed, hidden knowledge planted in a child, waiting to bloom. Is that what this was? Some kind of spiritual time capsule, delivered through the most innocent of messengers? Dr. Morrison visited the Hartley home a week later. She brought equipment, recording devices, cameras, documents. She interviewed Emma extensively, but found, to her frustration, that the little girl had returned to typical childhood concerns. She remembered the nice man, but couldn't articulate the complex theological concepts she'd spoken just days before. "It's as if the information was downloaded and then extracted," Dr. Morrison observed, leaving only the emotional imprint behind. "Is that possible?" Sarah asked. "I don't know," the professor admitted. "But I believe your daughter experienced something genuine. Whether it was divine intervention, some form of past life memory, or a psychological phenomenon we don't yet understand, I cannot say. What I can tell you is that the pattern your husband discovered in the biblical text is legitimate. I verified it with colleagues. It's been hiding in plain sight for 2,000 years. "What does it say?" Michael asked. Dr. Morrison pulled out her notes. Loosely translated, the hidden message speaks of a cycle, the end of one age and the beginning of another, but not as destruction, as metamorphosis. It suggests that what humanity perceives as apocalypse is actually awakening, a fundamental shift in consciousness. The door opening, as Emma described it, could be a metaphor for collective enlightenment. The room fell silent. "So my daughter," Sarah said slowly, "was used as a messenger to reveal an optimistic interpretation of the end times? That seems almost too convenient." "Or perfectly logical," Dr. Morrison countered. "If you were a divine entity trying to communicate a message of hope in a world drowning in fear, who better to use than a child, innocent, unjaded, capable of perceiving without the filter of cynicism that adults carry?" Could that be true? Could Emma have been selected for her purity, for her openness, for her ability to believe without questioning? Months passed. Winter came to Boone, blanketing the mountains in snow. Emma turned 5. She attended kindergarten and made friends and lived the life of a normal child. She rarely mentioned the nice man anymore, though sometimes Sarah caught her daughter staring out windows with a distant expression, as if remembering something just beyond reach. Michael and Sarah tried to return to normalcy, but they'd been changed. They'd glimpsed something beyond the veil of ordinary reality, and you can't unsee that. You can't unhear your child speaking with the voice of something ancient and wise. They told very few people about what happened. Dr. Morrison published a paper on the biblical pattern Michael discovered, attributing the finding to anonymous sources. It generated minor academic interest but no mainstream attention. Perhaps that was for the best. One evening in early spring, as Michael tucked Emma into bed, She looked up at him with those clear blue eyes and said something that made his breath catch. "Daddy, he told me something else, something I wasn't supposed to share until I was older. But I think you should know now." "What's that, sweetheart?" "He said this happens every few generations. Someone small remembers, someone tells the secret, and each time a few more people understand. He said it's like lighting candles in a dark room. Eventually, there's enough light to see by." Michael felt tears burning his eyes. "Am I supposed to be one of those candles?" Emma smiled. "We all are, Daddy. We all are." That night, Michael lay awake beside Sarah, listening to the wind whisper through the pines outside their window. He thought about faith and fear, about messages delivered through children, about secrets hidden in ancient texts waiting for the right eyes to find them. He thought about the possibility that reality was far more mysterious, far more purposeful than he'd ever imagined. And he wondered if Emma was right, if there truly was a door waiting to open, a transformation waiting to unfold. Would humanity be ready? Would they recognize awakening when it arrived? Or would they mistake it for ending, as they'd done so many times before? The questions haunted him. They haunt him still. Years have passed now. Emma is 8 years old. She's a bright, happy child who loves art and science and climbing the mountains behind their home. She doesn't remember most of what she said during those strange October weeks when she was 4. It's like a dream that faded upon waking, but sometimes, on quiet evenings when the light slants through the trees just right, she'll pause and say something that makes her parents' hearts stop. Small observations, brief insights, little reminders that whatever touched her once left permanent marks. "Do you ever feel like everything is about to change?" she asked recently at dinner. "Like we're all waiting for something big, but we don't know what it is?" Michael and Sarah simply nodded. Because yes, they feel it too. That sense of anticipation, that feeling of standing on the edge of something vast and unknowable. Is it real? Is it psychological? Is it the collective anxiety of a troubled world? Or is it something else entirely? Something Emma glimpsed when a presence visited her in the dark and whispered secrets about doors and transformations and the hidden patterns in words everyone reads but nobody truly sees. We may never know for certain, but the Hartley family knows this. Their daughter was touched by something that chose her as a vessel for a message about hope disguised as prophecy, about endings that are actually beginnings, about the secret that's been hiding in plain sight since words were first written down. They know that messages arrive in unexpected ways, through children, through synchronicities, through moments when the veil thins and something from beyond whispers truths we're not quite ready to hear. They know that reality is stranger than we admit, that mysteries exist beyond explanation, that some things must be experienced to be believed. And they know they're not alone, because if Emma was chosen once, others have been chosen too. Other children, other messengers, other small lights flickering in the darkness, preparing humanity for whatever comes next. The door Emma spoke of hasn't opened yet, but perhaps it's unlocking. Perhaps each person who hears this story, who feels that strange recognition deep in their chest, is another tumbler falling into place. Another step toward the moment when everything shifts and what was hidden becomes visible at last. Do you feel it? That pull toward something you can't name? That sense that the world is holding its breath, waiting. Maybe that's the real secret, not the specific words or codes or patterns, but the awareness itself. The knowing that we're part of something larger, something purposeful, something that's been unfolding since the beginning of time and will continue long after we're gone. Emma Hartley, now 8 years old, carries that awareness like a quiet flame. She doesn't speak about it much. She doesn't need to. It's woven into everything she is, everything she does, every way she moves through the world. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the message wasn't meant to be shouted from mountaintops or written in bold letters. Maybe it was meant to be planted like a seed in one small child, trusting that the truth would grow and spread in its own time, in its own way. Trust takes courage. Believing takes courage. Opening yourself to possibilities beyond the rational takes tremendous courage. The question is, do you have that courage? When the unexplainable arrives at your door, when your child speaks wisdom beyond their years, when coincidences pile up until they're no longer coincidental, will you be brave enough to listen, or will you close your eyes, dismiss it as imagination, and miss the invitation entirely? The choice, as always, is yours. The door is there. It's always been there, waiting for enough people to recognize it, waiting for enough lights to flicker on in the darkness, waiting for the moment when humanity collectively decides to step through and see what waits on the other side. Emma is waiting. The Hartley family is waiting. Dr. Morrison is waiting. And somewhere in the mountains of North Carolina, in 1,000 other places across the world, other messengers are waiting too. The secret has been told. Now comes the hard part, remembering it, living it, becoming it. Are you ready? If this story moved you, subscribe so you won't miss what comes next.